Jay, we were talking this morning, what kind of chord would Kirby Smart like to strike? I'm curious to hear from you gentlemen what you thought this morning about the way he led off.
Are you talking about the Gunner Stockton story?
Uh-huh.
Well, I think if I'm the rest of the SEC and Kirby Smart's going to let us in a little bit and share some personal, tangential, look how much. All right, we've got future NFL dudes running up and down the sidelines. And when they come out of the tunnel, you're going to be looking over there going, damn, I wish I had that one and that one and that one. But if he's now going to start talking about, look, some of that may be calculated because apparently instead of teaching driver's ed in Athens, they teach speeding ed. But being the opportunist of sharing, look, we got a good dude at the face of our program right here. And everybody looks to that guy. Billy, you haven't heard this. Among my 8 million theories that I throw out there, Brian's heard this one multiple times. One of them is a Tebow theory. And when your best player becomes your hardest worker and the guy everybody looks to in the locker room, you can do extraordinary things. And that Gunner Stockton story echoed to me that Kirby thinks this group can do special things.
Yeah, so, and I'm going to just go on a side tangent because you brought up Stockton before I forget. So I could not believe it early this morning on SEC this morning, I think that's what they call it. Before, Kirby went to the podium, Chris Doering did not have Gunner Stockton in his top 5 quarterbacks. I'm sure Kirby is going to be letting him know about that as well. But yeah, Kirby exuded confidence. He loves his football team, and understandably so, because they're one of the most talented teams in the country. And you saw that he loves this squad. And also the one position group that, if we're going by Phil Steele's national unit rankings, it's the only position group that is not in the top 9 of the entire squad, and it's the wide receiver room. And he made sure to thank the media guy that asked about the wide receivers, so that he doesn't need much help in getting those guys motivated. So that's the only position room that is of concern. But he didn't seem very concerned about it, and loves his squad. And in terms of the wide receiver room, they're going to run a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, and they got the best tight ends in the country. So, but, outside of London Humphreys, they really don't have anybody coming back that's put up much in the stat department, but he loves his squad nevertheless.
Did the way he shut down that question, did that make you feel better than if he had gone on a tangent about, man, I love the way Isaiah Canyon's been fitting in. London Humphreys is taking a big step forward. Xavier White looks good. Did that make you feel better or worse than if he had kind of just blabbed on for a couple minutes?
If I'm a Georgia fan, it made me feel better.
I agree with that, Brian, because it honestly gives validity to every other part of that. There are a lot of guys who walk up there knowing they're going to a street ball with a squirt gun in terms of talent in this league. Kirby's riding a Sherman tank into that street fight. And if he's going to gloss over the one area of weakness that everybody nationally has because look, man, dog bites man does not make the front page of the newspaper. Man bites dog, that makes the front page of the newspaper. So when you're as good as Georgia is, the microscope's going to be on your deficiencies and not your proficiencies. And so the conversation is going to be around the wide receiver room. But as Brian said, they got a great tight end room. They got a deep stable of running backs. There is not a college offensive coordinator who prefers the play action pass more than Mike Bobo.
Yep.
And the 12 and 13 personnel, I think, is going to look, to go on a macro tangent, football's cyclical. And you go back through the generations. Bear became Bear in Tuscaloosa because they ran the wishbone and nobody was ready for it. Then everybody started running the wishbone, and then everybody practiced against the wishbone, and then everybody was prepared for the wishbone. So then the air raid, the Mike Leach, the Hal Mummy starts taking effect, and everybody airs it out. And then you don't get physical. And then we go back to pro sets. If Georgia goes physically with 12 and 13 personnel on a majority of their snaps, and everybody else is practicing against quarterbacks with mobility and midline type of sets and attacks, Georgia with that defense, controlling the football and being more physical, that's a hard out, fellas. That's a hard out.
And, I mean, you look at it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say.
You go ahead.
I was going to say, even you look at the way teams set up their defense, it's not a 3-4 or a 4-3. Every team's base package is nickel. Like, correct. You're set up to play against 3 wide receivers.
You're set up to play 3 wide receivers, and in whether it's a 3-3-5 or a 4-2-5 or whatever it is, if you got to start bringing safeties down to stop the run against 2 tight ends and 3 tight ends, look, man, this Georgia offense, this is a Mike Bobo created in a lab offense. A quarterback he recruited from Rayburn County when he was in the 7th grade, when Bobo was at South Carolina. Multiple tight ends. His son at center, who may be on some Remington watch lists. And a stable of running backs that allows play action pass, and a couple of dudes just running 9 routes on the perimeter. And we hadn't even talked about the strength of the team.
Which is, in your opinion,
a defense littered with future first, second, first 2-day picks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I forget how the question was phrased to him, but it was something about not as many transfers this year because they only got 9 transfers, but 7 of them are 4-stars. And I think that shows how, I mean, he said, look, we're going to always, he didn't go Dabo style by any means, but I think it just shows where he said something like, if we're interested in some special players or special players are interested in us, of course we're going to do that. But I think that just shows how much he liked the returning guys that they only wanted 9 or, only did 9 transfers. Go ahead.
And Billy, I'm curious on what you think about this, because that's going to be the next chapter in the progression of the portal, because you're going to have, unless you're Texas Tech, you're going to have a finite amount of money. And when you've got 10 or 11 defensive dudes that you want to keep in Athens, you've got to spend your money on retention rather than attraction.
Absolutely. And I think you ask anybody in that building, like, they feel great about the fact that it's their staff that's developed these kids. Like, you look around the country, there's guys that have made it work. And I think to a certain extent, like you can plug and play. But, I mean, I think if you asked, Georgia, and we saw it last year with Oklahoma, that was the first full class that Brent Venables had brought together. When you have continuity of defensive systems, guys that know how to coach them, they're ready.
Yeah, they haven't had a ton of turnover on the staff. I mean, Schumann is in his 7th year as co-DC. Robinson, 3rd year as co-DC. Special teams coach, 3rd year. I know Muschamp's gone, but wasn't he kind of like part-time here the last year or two?
He's gone now. He was not there.
Yeah.
He was part-time before the 2025 season.
Right.
If we move over.
My takeaway,
right,
let's do like final takeaways, and I know we'll recap the whole day. My final takeaway, and we talked about it this morning, Billy, I was hoping he was going to go double middle fingers to Lane Kiffin today because he's the one guy who could.
Right.
But
he didn't.
He didn't. He doesn't need to.
He just acknowledged he's a troll.
No. And you know what? My takeaway is Georgia's a favorite in this league.
Yeah. And I already had them that way, but barely ahead of Texas. But yeah, he had a chance to troll, there, using the word, Lane. And not only did he not, but he, brought up his dad and how proud he is of his dad and whatnot. So yeah, because we talked about that last week, Jay. What are the other coaches that are going to take shots at Lane? Well, Kirby took a hard pass on it.
Yeah, and we talked about the way yesterday that it felt like Greg Sankey was almost flailing a little bit because of the vulnerable position that the SEC has found itself in, at least comparative to what it was 3-4 years ago. Obviously, by Georgia standards, the last 2 years haven't been, maybe what the prior 3 years had. But I think you saw a real, confidence that was written all over his demeanor today, which I think it could have been easy for him to go in there and rail against the changes about how they need action, whine about the 9-game schedule. Like he seemed like he was content.
I think he's ready to play for an NFC South title.